Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with Sandeep Haridas, and he's with IntellectAI. Sandeep, we just got out of an amazing show, a presentation rather, that you just delivered. And I was really intrigued with this notion of this kind of this distribution ecosystem that you talked about. There's like these 4 components that you articulated so well. Can you just run us through that one more time? Because I think it's important, especially for our agent broker community, really get a good handle on what that means.
Absolutely, Miguel. So first of all, thank you for attending the conversation. And so the 4 components and that work with your existing infrastructure is what we want to highlight. Like, you don't have to do a lot of rip and shift job. It works with your existing agency management system, but these are capabilities that don't exist today. And so we bucketed them into 4 distinct groups.
Okay.
Group number 1 is about creating winning submissions, right? Because if you don't create winning submissions, you might have an account that is really, really good for an underwriting company, but if it is sent too late, or if it's sent incomplete, if it is sent with wrong information on it, it can go to the bottom of the pile. And underwriters have this memory where they know that, oh, this submission coming from Sandeep is not going to be up to par, so I'm going to work on it last. And when somebody is working on your submissions last, they don't work on it. Right. So how do you create winning submissions is the first thing that you want to do. So how do you use AI to read client documents, to read submissions from a retailer if you're a wholesaler, and really put together a complete package that can be handed over to the underwriter and saying, you got everything that you need. When can I get my quote back? Right?
Yeah.
It puts you in a place of power rather than saying, okay, what else do you need?
Yep.
Right? Did I send you all the losses that you needed? Did you need a supplemental app filled out?
Right.
No more guessing game. Create winning submissions is step 1.
Yep.
Second step after that is to be first to market. And having a great submission is great, but if you don't beat everybody else to the underwriter's desk or to the underwriter's inbox, market's blocked.
Yep.
You're not cleared, right? And so you don't want to take too much time in doing the first step, which is why you need AI, which is why you need automation. But the second step is as important, is to get to clearance. Because if you get to clearance, only then do you get to quotes and indications. Only if you do get to quotes and indications, then you bind.
Right.
So that is where you need to be able to have a full life cycle in your distribution ecosystem in a way that allows you to not just get to market first, but then track all the pieces of the puzzle in terms of have you received the indications, have you received the clearance, have you received the indications, who your underwriter is, and if there are any changes that need to happen, who are you sending it to, right? Identifying the right markets.
And how about like nuances depending on the market that you're sending it to, and kind of understanding what those nuances might be? You know, this carrier, this underwriter wants to see this versus that. You know, is that kind of all included in that thought process?
It is an extremely important part, those nuances. I love how you called it out. The nuances around aren't that stringent necessarily sometimes in terms of workers' comp, right? Workers' comp is awesome, and so, but you don't really have a lot of variations in markets. But when you're talking about property, when you're talking about general liability, habitational versus non-habitational,
right,
those are 2 very different worlds, right? And so that kind of knowledge-driven decision making on which markets to send your submissions to and which markets to not send your submissions to, because then you want to keep those markets reserved for other things that might be coming up.
That's right.
And having that full visibility and that awareness, right? You're not working in the moment, you're working with a holistic perspective of your entire book and saying, okay, I need to place $100 million in premium this year. I'm on my first 10 million. I have 90 more to go, right? How am I going to pace this in a way that ensures that by October, November, I'm in a very good place. I'm ready for the next cycle in January, and I've actually beaten my goal, right? So this is the ecosystem that's going to help you do that. So that's the second step. The third step after that is obviously what we call contract certainty, right? How do you drive contract certainty to ensure that what was in the final quote that you negotiated with the underwriter is in your final binder? What is in the final binder is exactly what is in the policy, and nothing gets dropped off, nothing gets added on. Again, assuming best intentions, something could happen that you need to be aware of, and that is what we're trying to drive with AI, where AI can do a contextual assessment of your policy, a contextual and a really expert review of your binders to ensure that they truly match, right, in spirit and in word. So that's the third part.
But before you move on, because I just want a quick question. So when I hear you talk about contextual evaluation, so you're saying that AI will say, okay, well, for these class codes, this line of business, this types of exposure, you might want to be thinking about these types of things. And did the quote and the policy terms that we get back, are they contextually relevant to that class, or is that level of detail?
So yes, yes, and.
Okay.
So yes, and, right? And because our policies are designed in a way that is very expert oriented. Like if you know what you are looking for, you will find it.
Sure.
It's almost like the room of requirements in Harry Potter.
Okay.
So you need to know what you're looking for, and because a base form could say no pollution is covered, right? Pollution is completely excluded. There's no liability taken on for pollution. But then page 93, you add a pollution endorsement. You're saying limited cleanup expenses for up to $50,000 is included.
Right.
It changes the nature of the policy, right? So that is what I mean by contextually aware and expert review, where I say if you were just doing a word search or a term search, you would have found pollution is excluded, checked off the box, you're done. But now suddenly you have that pollution. And the last thing you want to hear is your excess layers coming back to you and saying, are you out of your mind? You said that that pollution was not included, and it's like, no, it's not. Well, it is, right? Because some underwriter somewhere read those 97 pages and found that there was an endorsement that was brought in. So that is what I mean by a contextually aware and an expert review of these policies and binders to ensure that whatever needs to be excluded is excluded, and whatever needs to be included is included, because wherever there's a gap, who pays? The broker's E&O.
It's on your E&O, that's right.
Exactly.
All right, so take us to number 4.
Number 4 is truly then turning all of this data into assets, let's call them that allow you to truly project yourself as the expert in front of both the underwriter and your client, because the client is relying on you for advice. And how do you give them that advice? How do you create that level of comfort and respect in front of your clients, and that needs to come from the insights that you've collected. And so if you're a large brokerage like an Aon, a Marsh, Willis, Lockton, or Hub, you have so much information, so much data that you have in your enterprise. How do you convert that into AI-ready data sets and structures, and then use the power of AI to be able to, in some cases, summarize, in some cases, conclude, in some cases, drive insights, and so that you can then start identifying niches. Like what are the parts of your business where you are always late in receiving quotes? And why is that? Right? I was a schools underwriter, right? But different schools meant different things for me. So if for an agent who had a $12, $13 million book with me, they must be wondering why I'm quoting something and why I'm not quoting something when I'm their biggest market. Those kind of insights sometimes can be very tricky and very difficult, and these shift over time. So you want to use the power of AI, you want to use the power of data analytics, and so that is the fourth component, and that becomes your feedback loop into what kind of markets do you want to then continue to grow, and say, okay, if I know that Section 8 housing is where I struggle the most. I need to find alternate capacity and carriers who would be able to write that, and that allows you to, while your $100 million is safe with your main carriers, you might have another $20 million in opportunity on Section 8 housing.
Could I take it the other way and say, and use AI to help me identify where capacity might be opening up, where there's opportunity for me to play based off of what we're seeing elsewhere?
100%. And that is where what we call market unstructured data, right? All the brochures that your underwriters leave with you after paying for your lunch or dinner, right? You just throw it away or discard it or keep it somewhere or give it to your assistant and say, see what we can do with it, right? That brochure could have opened up $5 to $10 billion in capacity for you for an aviation program that you had been contemplating for 6 years, but never really had someone back it up in a way that you wanted backing up. And there it was on page 2 of that brochure that you discarded away or wiped your fingers with after so those are the kind of insights that we're talking about, in truly being able to build that enterprise knowledge garden with all the data that is coming from your structured submissions and from the unstructured sources like those brochures.
I love it, Sandeep. Let me tell you what I think I heard here, by the way, which I think is really, really impactful, is, we struggle with this on the carrier side, but I'm sure as well on the agent and broker side, where do we actually apply AI? What is our approach? And what I've heard you do is just lay out this very, very simple to understand fundamental roadmap of all of the use cases in line order where AI can have a fundamental change. And you said it in there. The one thing that I'd like you to just talk a little bit more about is, what do I do now with all of this newfound time when AI is actually doing all of these things that I'm spending hours and hours on?
Oh, that is such a beautiful question. What I do with that time is I do my job, which is fundamentally not the clerical work that you had asked me to do as a broker. I became a broker because I enjoyed building relationships.
That's right.
I enjoyed solving problems for my clients. I enjoyed selling my the value proposition of an account to my underwriters and ensuring that we win together. That is why I joined this industry. That's why I joined the business. And you've locked me down with 70-80% of my time spent in the office to do data entry into a system that was built in the 90s.
Yep.
And is that what I want to do? And is that what a 25-year-old broker who is graduating from one of the risk programs at an esteemed university is going to come into your... They have a lot of choices between wholesale and retail and all the distribution aspects that you have. Why would they pick you as the place that they want to build their career in? And this is what you need. So it's not just about revenue generation or protecting your market, but it's also about talent acquisition. So what you do with that extra time is you broker. Right? You spend that time with your client.
Yeah, I love it. And you just said something that kind of just struck me. And here's where I got to get a little pessimistic, and I worry. Sure. I worry that we are in an industry that, call it at least the past 25 years, we've gotten our mindset around that clerical, that administrative work, that is our job.
Yes.
That's what we are to do.
Yep.
And now you're telling me, well, no, we're going to shift that. And I worry about the change resistance, the friction that even though we're talking about a better possibility, we're talking about a future that looks much brighter, a lot more fun, a lot more productive, we're still going to run into change friction. Yeah. Like what do you see in that, and how do we attack that?
That's again a brilliant question. And I actually feel that having been in this industry for over 2 decades and having seen change from both sides, from an underwriting perspective and from a distribution perspective, I can tell you that the change that we're talking about here is going to be a lot easier and a lot simpler than it is on the underwriting side. Because when you ask an underwriter to focus more on risk selection, to focus on risk decisioning, and to focus more on eventually on terms and conditions and then on pricing, you just change their entire world. Because what is the first thing that I did as an underwriter 10 years ago? As soon as the submission came in, even before opening the submission, I would hit forward and send it to my ops unit to get a quote back.
Okay.
And if the quote price was in the right ballpark, then I would start underwriting, which is completely the opposite way of doing things, right? And for me to change to do that was a lot more difficult. But if you ask a broker to spend more time with their clients, to spend more time with their underwriters, I think they would be happier. So I don't think the change management aspect is as difficult as it would be on the underwriting side. It should be easier on the distribution side.
I appreciate the bright future. Sandeep, thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous. Thank you for your time.
So nice meeting you.